Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're going to be talking about the one and only Turbo coin. This coin does not fail me at all, ladies and gentlemen. This coin continues to exceed expectations. We talked about in the last video how, it's very, very possible that, with the weekly candle we saw, that it was very, very likely that we are going to see some type of retracement. Now, I still think there's a very good chance. However, we can see that even though it sold off on Saturday, on Sunday, it has recovered, leaving us a different type of weekly candle, right? So if Turbo closes anything like this, I would still probably expect a little bit of a pullback, but it does mean that there's a lower and lower chance that we will be coming into this zone. Now, I will say, right, at this current moment, we are kind of still struggling to break past these highs, right? We can see that it's pretty much a double top, and then we can see that we have a nice big 4-hour wick, which means there's usually going to be some type of order block candle there, and we can see we actually tap into this candle right here perfectly on the hourly chart. So two things, right? The way this is trading just screams institutional to me, right? Anytime a currency pair or a crypto is trading into order blocks and it is trading this type of way, means that it is heavily manipulated, okay? Which is good because, ladies and gentlemen, the reality is all the markets are super manipulated, and that's just how the world works. And when you have a meme coin that's not getting manipulated by big institutions, then you know what? There's a good chance your meme coin probably won't do well this cycle. And that is just a harsh reality. So when I see this type of price action, it actually really, really excites me because I do believe, we do cover the micro levels here on the channel. But ultimately, if we're looking from point A to point Z, the future is looking fantastic. It is looking bright. It is looking like we are going to be getting very, very big, massive pumps because I could see the institutional trading that is occurring here. Now, in terms of the charts, right, when we look, we can see that we are kind of consistently creating higher and higher lows, although we are kind of, not creating higher highs, okay? We can see over here that boom, we do have one nice low, and then we can see boom, we have another nice low, and then guess what? Another nice low that's getting higher and higher. Now, this does technically still scream bullish, right? Because although there is a roof, our floors are getting higher. I will say though, since something like Turbo or just other altcoins, it's not as just simple as the coin itself, okay? Yes, the coin can be doing good. Yes, the coin can have good narratives and such. But the thing is, it's all kind of always tied back down to Bitcoin and Bitcoin dominance. So, if this was just a normal Forex pair, for example, then I would probably be super, super bullish on it, right? I still am on the weekly and for the short term or short, medium, and long term. But if we're talking about the super, super short term, I am, most likely still thinking that there's going to be some type of pullback, okay? Because we do have Bitcoin starting to sell off very, very, very slowly. Now, the thing is technically, right? The thing is technically with something like Bitcoin, right? As long as it kind of keeps holding this price and kind of keeps creating higher lows as well, then Bitcoin can kind of keep rallying up. But I do believe there will just be simply 1 week for Bitcoin, especially with how weak this Bitcoin candle is, where we kind of retrace back to 91, 92,000 for a proper retest. Okay. That is what I'm still looking out for. So, like I said, if there was going to be a little bit of a pullback, it wouldn't even be that high for Bitcoin. At max, what we talked about, maybe it going to 90K. And even if it did that, like 6%, meaning altcoins probably dump 10 to 11% average, meme coins 15 to 20%. So even if Turbo did retrace, have a 20% retracement, it wouldn't even be that far back, right? It wouldn't even be that far back. If we go look, 20% from here is probably like what? Yeah, down to these levels. So it's still within the range, right? It's still within the range. For me, just the way I've been taught with trading and just what I've always liked to see is always the most fundamental pullbacks. But the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, I know once kind of the crypto market has its green light, it doesn't really need to pull back, right? If we have something similar to what we had over here, right? Yes, there were certain zones where it could have, retested off of, pulled back a little bit, and it did, right? It pumped, slowed down for 2 weeks, and then it had another massive pump. And the exact same thing can very well happen. If we do not want to go back lower and we simply start creating more and more higher lows, then we will just continue pumping up. And we can, because like I talked about previously, but I'll say it again, is that there's a lot of imbalance, right? There's literally a lot of imbalance up until I would say 0.008 is the main zone. Okay. Plus, then we also come back into some type of support and resistance. So the reality is we can just be kind of ranging between these smaller, less relevant zones instead of having a full fundamental pullback. And we can just, retest, bounce off, push above, right? I'll draw it out for people. It's just so simple, right? Even if we reject, we could just kind of technically continue bouncing off of here until we finally get to this zone. And that's when things might just slow down a little bit more before we continue pushing up. Because like I said, there's not much support and resistance up until this big green box. Okay. And like I said, once something's super bullish, it doesn't need massive corrections of, 30%, 40%, something like that. Because the reality is, if we did, come back all the way down here, this would actually be a fairly big correction, right? If we actually remove this, do something like this, and we take it from here at this point, right? Roughly, it's going to be roughly 40%. Okay. So 40% correction is very, very, very big. Now, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if we're necessarily going to get that, especially that out of all the coins, Turbo seems to be the one that just wants to pump higher and higher, right? We can see Turbo is like the only green coin in the market at this current moment. All of these are forex pairs and such, but literally from the cryptos we hold, this is the only green currency, right? If we go to crypto bubbles, right? We go on the day, if we do from the 100 to 200 range, because that's where we're at, there's not many coins that are green. A lot of them are red. A lot of them are red, right? We have a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. Turbo is by far the biggest one, right? This one, I mean, technically it's this coin, but we literally marked it up. It was like 15%. Even if we go to the top 100, it's just a handful of coins that are green, right? Most coins are getting some type of correction. So it really makes you think that, hey, Turbo could be that anomaly where, even if there's some type of, pullback, maybe the pullback won't be that strong, right? Because our chart is very different and unique where, like I said, we have a lot of imbalance up to 0.008. So, we just have to monitor it. At the end of the day, right, for something like this does not really matter to me, okay? I have my Turbo purchases already, right? I bought a lot of Turbo, at the bottom, somewhere in the middle, even a little bit higher up here, very small positions, right? Even up here, small positions. But generally, I have a lot here and even here and just in this zone area, right? So I'm chilling. I am chilling. And I even have some from all the way. Actually, I have a very big bag from all the way over here, right? Was this smart of me to just hold and not ever sell? I mean, kind of in a way, but not really. I could have technically taken some profits, rebought and made more money. But my plan this cycle was very simple. Just hold from A to Z, right? Which is something, that's something else, right? That we can discuss another time. But yeah, look, um, overall, I'm super bullish. Like all these micro moves don't really matter to me, right? It doesn't matter if Turbo, does get corrected here now or later or whatever's going to happen because ultimately it is looking very fantastic. I will say though, right, something I did not say is that we are rejecting off this 3-monthly order block candle. So is probably why we're struggling a little bit. So if we were to ping pong, I mean, it would literally make the most sense to come back here from a fundamental standpoint. But once again, in terms of percentages, that is just a very big drop, 37%, which I mean, it's doable, but how likely, I'm not too sure. Maybe if there's a big liquidity sweep of Bitcoin going back to 89K with Bitcoin dominance shooting up, maybe there's a chance where we have that type of sweep. I will put a buy limit. I will say right now, I will have a buy limit right over here on the rectangular box of 0.0035, right? I will have a buy limit as my final purchase for Turbo, just because, you know me, ladies and gentlemen, I am going all out with crypto. I am just putting most of my, net worth in it, most of the money I make. So, you know what? Some call it an addiction. I call it, passion. I call it seeing the future. But yeah, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.